Well, good morning once again. The very early morning video from India, 3:30 a.m. IST, Indian Standard Time. Thereafter today, it's very important to talk about these matters because today in Facebook, I have been into groups of various sociology research works, and thereafter I found there has been questioned that what is sociology talks about, and there are few very poisonous misunderstanding because when you have a little knowledge, it is something which is very poisonous because without knowing a proper knowledge, having a little knowledge is very, very poisonous. So thereafter, there are people who used to know about the fact that sociology can be only of BSc because it holds statistics, or for that matter, which holds the empirical evidences. But it is also being criticized among people who asked about what about BA honors, Bachelor of Arts of Sociology. Yes, it do exist because there has been certain interdisciplinary subject like foreign policy, women's studies, or women's studies, the country who doesn't want to generalize women's studies, women being a particular, identification as a minority, they call it to be gender studies. So I will be calling the first world countries and some of the developing countries, like second world countries, like our India has not been yet a first world country, talks about that women's studies, it should be gender studies, because I have done my MPhil, Master of Philosophy in Women's Studies, specializing in sociology again. Now here, there has been various groups who talk about the sociology, criticizing the person who is asking about where can I take admission about BA sociology. They say that it's BSc sociology. What is sociology? It doesn't exist. Where are you from? Students, teachers, faculty, or whatever you are, whoever you are, I don't know, you're from different countries, different states, nation states, and there are multiple regions which are present. Sociology do exist. If you are aware of Industrial Revolution, Green Revolution, French Revolution, Roman Revolution, you should be aware of the fact that there has been University Revolution, which is a kind of education revolution that took place, and after where there has been various multidisciplinary subjects which were introduced as a mainstream subject as well. When sociology was introduced to our country in India, there was our Indian sociologist M.N. Srinivas in his the very initial stage. He told that there are people who doesn't get selected to any other subject, they take sociology because people think sociology is a subject of the matter which talks about society. Anyone can talk about any natural things that society considered to be. But very honestly speaking, sociology doesn't only consider the study of society, which is merely considered to be a common sense. There is a difference between common sense and sociology. Very important for the sociology student of the coming semesters. There will be question, I assume there will be question of the difference between sociology and the concept of common sense, because common sense is certain assumptions which is not supported with empirical evidences most of the time. Like for example, there are people who used to know about gripe water. Whenever we are giving birth to a child, we have gripe water actually doesn't have any empirical evidences, and there is also not very specific evidence scientifically that if you have a C-section child, cesarean baby, then in that case you cannot shuffle him into the oil that is the oil that is very repercussionate, and to make him wealthier. This kind of notions are something which is very assumptuous. So these are what we call common sense, and common sense doesn't relate to sociology. Sociology is very, very importantly an empirical study. It's a scientific study of society supported with empirical evidences, and also interaction between human behavior and that with the society. So when it was coined sociology by Anthony, in the book of Anthony Giddens, you will be finding Auguste Comte. Most of the people consider pronouncing him Comte because the word spells C-O-M-T-E, but it's not Comte. He used to be known as Auguste Koth, who actually coined the term sociology. But before coining the term sociology was used to be known as social physics. Why? Because they used to consider into the scientific matters. What is the difference between the natural science and social science? Very important question again for the coming semester. What is the difference between natural science and social science? Natural science has the conclusion which is universally accepted, but social science has a conclusion which is having a conclusion. Any social science, considering it to be economics, which also into BSc as well as BA in some of the universities of various countries, and thereafter whenever a social parlance is there, it is having an interpretative understanding which is known as Verstehen by Max Weber. Thereafter, Koth, when he understood that social physics cannot be coined because it doesn't have the same conclusion for everyone. You are seeing me as whatever, as an Indian woman. Someone can call, an obnoxious person who doesn't have sleep at the night. Someone can call, the old women trying to portray herself as a young woman. So there can be interpretative understanding of this particular video. So thereafter, this is what we interact with the society or social behavior, and thereafter it should be supported by empirical evidences. When we call it to be assumptions, what is known as common sense, thereafter in sociology it is known as hypothesis. Again, a very important question for coming sociology examination. What is the difference between hypothesis and objective? When you go for a research work, objective is a particular aim which you're aware of, but hypothesis is something which you're assuming, and you have to be supporting it with your logic of cause and effect. And there are various statistical data, and therefore there are people who also combined it that, sociology is a BSc subject. It's not a BA subject. It's not a Bachelor of Arts. It's a Bachelor of Science. No. It used to be a multidisciplinary subject. Thereafter it can be both BA and BSc nowadays, and thereafter people who go through standard deviation, mean median mode, dispersion, chi-square to support their hypothesis, to understand whether it's a null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis, what Emily Durkheim called as manifest and latent functions, which means when you assume something and your assumption gets correct, it's something which you get, the null hypothesis means you're getting your expected manifestation. Thereafter, when you get something which you assumed and it's having an alternative reaction, thereafter you're having it to be as a alternative hypothesis. So thereafter, sociology is not a subject that is only merely studying society. It has various theories. It has perspectives like, positivism. It has perspectives like functionalist, conflict, critical, structuralist, post-structuralist, postmodernist, feminist. There are so many genre of school, like Frankfurt schools. There are Chicago schools of studies. So it is just not merely a common sense about the society. The groups where I have, retaliated upon the fact, I don't remember, and I keep on forgetting because I don't remember how many groups I'm associated with, how many channels I'm associated with. I used to be having 3,000 friends, which I cuddled down to some of the friends which actually I know personally, apart from the people who are my mutual friends. So thereafter, these are some of the questions which are coming for might be coming for, and you will be getting common in any entrance examination especially. Now again, there are certain things that we need to talk about, like for example marginalization. These are the questions which are very common for people who are appearing for IITs, or any CUET, the entrance examination, which are common for everyone. Any kind of, whether irrespective of countries, irrespective of the regional centers, irrespective of the national state centers. So like for example, what is marginalization? If I don't tell you that, you don't know this and you need my support to gain this expertise, how will I, gain my power? For instance, like we talk about democracy, very, very important fact, democracy, and we all consider that we need to go for democracy. And we criticize communism. We criticize Marx being very famous for his conception of communism because he was against the capitalism. It's not about communism. These are all the words which we have been labeled upon. Very, very important question. This is also a particular theory which we call grounded theory or labeling theory for that matter, where we particularly scrutinize a person and we label a person. And thereafter, what we call to capitalism, we need to have the basic necessary prerequisite: food, shelter, and clothes. But can't I have my urge for a golden ring? Can't I have an urge for what kind of tablet is known as? I don't know. I mean, the written tablets these are. I don't know. I mean, I could have been satisfied with just a particular room and having water and having rice, or being a Bengali girl having fish, ilish mach, hilsa for that matter, or maybe mutton or whatever. Now, here again, the religious confrontations, the religious differences, any rights, any kind of contradiction, India being colonially sufficed for 300 years. There are so many reasons behind every kind of succession or abolitions or being a legitimization. Something which used to be legal, now it's illegal. Something which used to be illegal, now it's legal. So there are amendments because rules are made by people. Religion has been created by men. All these things which are created by and labeled by us is now guarding us as well as ruling us. And thereafter, there is Michel Foucault, who talked about government. We talk government to be the indicator, social institution, social organization, or what we call organismic analogy, that is like the body, human body, hand, legs, eyes, everything working to function our body. It's about also the social institutions or indicators which functions to function the society. Thereafter, government, considered to be the social institution, is actually not a body. It's, if you do the abbreviation, then in that case it's the mentality of the person who is governing you. Thereafter, communism, capitalism, whatever it is called, socialism, there cannot be classless society. There cannot be someone under every consideration under one umbrella, because you always need segregation. You always need stratas. Because being a teacher, being a social science research worker, or being a freelancer for marketing strategies and content strategies, I cannot build a house with hammer. I cannot plow a land for my rice. I need a farmer. I need a mechanical subordination whom I can control with my power of either autonomy or, for that matter, materialistic power. Thereafter, there cannot be classless society. Why Marx was being criticized, being an utopian idea of classless society, to be having a sociology? Because Marx, in his magnum opus ideas of Communist Manifesto or Das Kapital, talked about that he is not a believer of himself to be a Marxist. In India, there has been various sociologists like G.S. Ghurye, who first introduced sociology as a mainstream subject into University of Bombay. And thereafter, there has been like Dhurjyoti Prasad Mukherjee, who talked about the fact that he is not a Marxist, he's a Marxologist. What that means? What's the difference between ist and logist? When you blindly support someone, like Marx used to be a young Hegelian, and thereafter, that's what you called a blind supporter. When you called yourself to be a logist, means you're taking that person and giving your own idea. You're taking the idea of the person and giving your own idea towards the theory. Now, here again, a very, very important question for every sociology entrance or coming up students, like what is the consideration of theory to research and research to theory? Because theory, what we take as a review of literature while doing a research, and the research actually consolidate into a theory. Again, that's the same thing whether hen is before or the egg is before. So, sociology is not merely a common sense. It's something you have to support with that of your empirical evidences. And thereafter, Auguste Comte, being the father of sociology, talked about positivism. When we, consider ourselves parting with that of when we are parting ourselves that of being metaphysical in our nature, being supernatural. Now, here I talk about religion, another very, very important question. With religion, everyone writes about the definition, its features, its theories. You have to also write about the fact, which we'll get into the Nackmius books, which talks about what is not religion. Religion is not belief in monotheism. It does not believe into the fact of supernaturalism or superficialism, some kind of unbelievable matters with unprecedented evidences, and also of the fact it does not control the behavior of the believer. If you're related to a particular religion, the religion doesn't actually control your behavior. Like, for example, being a Hindu and Brahmin, I need to pray like this, or to become a Muslim, I need to pray like this, or to become a Christian, I have been told that I'm Brahmin as an ascriptive status, or Hindu as an ascriptive status, but I have been studied into a Roman Catholic school where I used to know that Lord's prayer is everything until I'm in class 6, unless to understand what is the differences between the religions, because I used to be into a Roman Catholic school. And thereafter, religion, what I say, the first thing, it doesn't believe in monotheism, it doesn't believe in superficialism or supernaturalism, it doesn't control the behavior of the believer, and lastly, it does not talk about the origin of the earth. No one can talk about the origin of the earth. There has been so many assumptions, and then again assumptions to be supported with empirical. What is empiricism? It's the reality. There are people confused between theology about the fact that whether theology means supported by theory. No, it's not theology which is supported by theory. Theology means it is supported whether you are supporting to a god. That means you are believing in theism into the religion, or the matter of the fact that someone is omnipotent, omnipresent, or for that matter powerful. Thereafter, sociology is not merely a common sense of studying the society. Now I come to some of the most important questions for the people appearing for the honors examination. PPP model, very, very important for second world country examinations, because public-private partnership used to be, means when I studied into urban economics department of my university, thereafter I used to come up with the fact of PPP model, but now it has been introduced into sociology and various other subjects. Why? Because there are various institutions which require the help of public-private partnership. We all know about MNCs, multinational company. How many of us do know about the existence of transnational companies which can even take over a particular continent, and thereafter, these are the questions which will be very, very probable for the people appearing for entrance examination. It's very heinous to understand people going for PhD, going through objectivity, the year of the particular author has given up a particular theory. I have written so many articles which I've forgotten about the year. Now, if I have forgotten, how can I expect a particular student learning multiple theory, starting from traditional to the contemporary, remembering the year, their book name, and then I'm leaving the syllogism. Like, my name is Srija. So Srija is a good person. Srija is a good person with the fact that when she's supporting her evidences. Now, whether these two sentences are true, these two sentences are false, or any one of them are correct. Now, what are these kind of syllogism? These are all made a construction. Let me talk about patriarchy there again. We all call that, women are marginalized. Why will I call myself to be minority? Because if you see, we have trillion population in of our world, and we are being, subordinated by a few leaders. So they are actually minority, because we're trillion and they are just thousands or lakhs maybe into the entire world. So they are the minority, but they are the circulation of elite by Wilfredo Pareto. So thereafter, if I call myself to be a woman and marginalized, if I ask for a reservation, that means I'm cornering myself. I consider myself to be women, but the minority of elite for that matter, because I don't call for any kind of reservation, irrespective of the fact that I have a retina detachment. Physical handicap, what is that? Someone which has been God-giftedly, it's not God-giftedly, it's actually some kind of biological, impeccableness of the parents. Didn't used to know before. Nowadays there has been various tests, anomaly test, quadruple test, double marker test, then quadruple marker test, to understand whether your baby will be having any kind of congenital problem. These things were not present before, so they used to. We have choices now. Motherhood can be a choice, parenthood can be a choice. It's not something of ladder of success. I come to the Indian concept again. Women often considered, you are a portrayal of Mother Durga. Durga means Dashabhuja, means the Lotus Durga who has 10 hands. Giving all this ladder to climb up the tree and taking up the ladder. Bengali mein ek kahavat hai, moite chodiye diye moi kede newa. That means in Bengali there is a proverb which means they give you a ladder to climb up the tree and then they take away the tree. Then you have only one choice. Either you have to jump from the tree, you have to climb down from the tree, or you have to cut the branch where you are sitting. Same thing goes for the women. They have been taken to the fact of, pinnacle that you are someone who can give birth to children and everything. What we are doing, we are taking our heirs from them. Again comes the fact, very, very important, the origination of marriage. Marriage, which was being called by Engels, very, very importantly, Friedrich Engels, who was a friend of Marx and a supporter and a co-companion of Karl Marx, talked about that it's a second world defeat of the female sex when we have been, consideration within the social contract of marriage. Thereafter, these are the few facts. We wear vermilion. Many of us, without Indian, there are various countries who doesn't understand why we wear the red, vermilion. They don't even know the word vermilion, because those are the red powder they talk about. It's because there used to be the provision that when someone was being married, they hid in such a way that there always being a belonging, that I belong to someone as a private property. To remove all these certain, privileges, or for that matter, to remove all these certain, cartons that gives us a binary of segregation, we have brought various comforts. There has been a census. Why the age of men and women being increased for marriage? Because of the protection of our women body. Nowadays, so much abortion rate has started because people fear that without marriage, if I get married, because there are so many connotations into Hindu society, into Indian society, into various other, religions, countries where without being married, being a mother is some kind of a profane. In those cases, these kind of acts were being made. But nowadays, the illegal abortions are being, like for example, female feticide. The female girls used to be, aborted before, because it's only considered men are the heir of the property. So thereafter, these are all something which became legal to illegal, illegal to legal, because these are all facts and provisions and labeling. Again, I consider the labeling theory or grounded theory, which you can also consider into the research questions like conceptualization or operationalization. Don't forget to provide the flow charts. Okay, so thereafter, these are the very important questions you need to go through into the research proposals as well. People who are going for a research proposal to this kind of women-centric cartons, I will be calling them. Now here again, the dress is a big taboo. Then again, being myself, I being a pseudo-fakia student, I'm talking about being a pseudo-fakia patient, where I was very, very conscious about my squintness. I was not a squint person. I am a pseudo-squint person, which is not a squintness. So it's kind of a pseudo, it's kind of a shadow, and thereafter I cannot be treated. I was so very ashamed of the fact I cannot look into the eyes of the others, because I used to have always a mind of fact that they are thinking me to be a squint. This kind of look at me, I'm not having any makeup, neither I'm having a lipstick. I have not taken bath for 3-4 days because I'm very lazy taking bath. I feel like it's a waste of water. Because I don't go outside. I don't do any work at home apart from studies. I take care of my child only when he is, with a demand of something to buy. So thereafter, why will I need to get, taking a shower unless I want to clean myself, anyway, get away with that fact. Now, coming to the matter of fact, so these are all the labeling theories you have to come across. So what are the questions? Very, very important. What is the difference between sociology and common sense? What are the difference between the consideration of theory to research and research to theory? What is the difference between research method and methodology? Again, this is the question I told that I'll come up with many a times, but I didn't come up with the several connotations it has. But mainly you have to be very conscious of the fact, the question that can be very, very precarious for coming semesters is like, there are various data collection methods like field survey, interview, questionnaire. Question which is very, very important is like what you call to be a good questionnaire, which includes both open-ended and close-ended. So these are all sorts of questions which I'm telling you for various semesters. It is a normal and natural questions of sociology. What was the other point? Yeah, I was talking about patriarchy. Now see, there used to be the time when men was very, very conscious about their wife, and they say that my wife won't go outside. Whatever I'm earning, she has or had to be confining within that, no matter whether I'm having a one single child or multiple children. Thereafter, nowadays, we have advertisement into various matrimonial sites that women need to be working, also considering their family, also taking care of the children if they cannot afford to have a particular caretaker of the child or children, whatever. So see how then in that case would we question that the masculinity is getting lesser? Men also had the pressure of being the sole bread earners during the time we called ourselves to be under patriarchal panorama. Thereafter, we need to consider these facts that everything is a social construction. It is not the fight between men and women or LGBTQIA community for that matter. Dopamine, being happy, you cannot feed me with something to love you or to consider yourself to consider you respectable in my eyes. I cannot have a particular psychiatric medicine to love you or to hate you. So this kind of considerations of emotions are something which are labeled. That is what sociology is all about. So the groups which are not present or whom I have answered very, in an arrogant manner, if you call, or you can say in an empirical manner. Because I always say, and this is a fact for every researcher, little study is poisonous. Study in depth, because of the fact, if you don't study in depth, you are indebted to the nature. For example, marriage. Everyone call themselves that I will be supporting you in your thick and thin moment. Anytime any accident occurs, anytime someone becomes important, men or women, whoever, we have a clause that we can file a divorce. If something called marriage, which should be indissoluble, standing beside you, being in thick and thin moment, how can I charge this kind of maintenance? So these are all the social facts that we need to think about. This is just the upsurge of my anxiety that I saw just now in Facebook into various social groups who are talking, knowing nothing about what is sociology. There are people questioning that what is the subject all about. Being a sociology honors student, masters, did MPhil, didn't get chance in PhD still now, though I got a chance in a very reputed and a very renowned university all over the world during the time when I was pregnant, and that time Corona was very, very, means in a heavy, huge propensity during the time of 2020. I tell you, it's not Corona, the beer we have. Now here again I come up with the question. There are various habit forming materials. For example, alcohol. For example, habit forming psychiatric medicines. For example, there are sleeping pills. People corner themselves having sleeping pills, having been drunk or something. Do you ever see a government banning them? Even if they're banning them, illegally it's being exported. Why? Because government generates their most important revenue from the habit forming materials, whatever it is. Because a person who is habituated to it, no matter how much GST will come, no matter how much tax will be levied on it, I am dependent on it, I will somehow get to it, or I will die for it. That's what habit I call about. And I say that love should be like habit, which require a rehab to overcome. I believe in such love which requires a rehabilitation to overcome. Unless it's your habit, unless it's your opium, it's not your love. Thereafter, this kind of consideration, like for example defense. Now people will be countering me, you are considering defense to be an offense? No. But what is defense? What is protecting our borders? There are so many deaths that are occurring, whether I'm killing my opponent or what we call the kind of the antisocial. We are actually killing a person who has taken birth from the womb of a mother itself, whether me being whatever citizen or residential charisma occurring. Defense, definitely creating the opportunity for employment, but the revenue we are generating is the body, the death sentence of particular martyr. We need to be proud to have a martyr, but from heart, if my son or my daughter dies at a border, considering whatever fight or war it takes place, no matter whoever is antisocial, who is social and who is antisocial. Because a mother will never create a rapist. A mother or a father will never create a terrorist. It's all about the environment they are into, the adaptation. Again, another question. What's the difference between adaptation and adaptation? Adaptation, something which you're born to be dutiful of. Adaptation, which you are generating yourself within the environmental consideration. These are all the differences to study sociology and to consider itself as a connotation of common sense. Thank you so much. If you like this video, please do subscribe my channel. I would consider myself to be nameless, unless being given my name to be Srija, or what my grandmother used to call me, Liana, for that matter. In Hebrew, it used to be known as the goddess of youth. For example, when it used to be in ICC, we read a poem, Tithonus. It was the book Whispers of Immortality. I hope the poem name was Tithonus. I don't remember exactly the name, but the fact was that the goddess of dawn, Aurora, fell in love with a man, human being whose name was Tithonus, and she said that I will be giving you a boon, that means a blessing, and he said that give me immortality. Now see, he was immortal, but she was goddess, she was beautiful immortally. But the man who was immortal, he grew older and older and older, And lastly, Aurora cannot take to see him the perilous condition of being the oldest form of a person. So she transformed him into a grasshopper. Thereafter, you have a pan into the word, what we talk about in the figure of speech, pan word, which means if I consider make me immortal, don't say that to make me immortal, I would say make me youthfully immortal so that I can remain like this immortally, and I don't get converted into a perilous situation where I cannot consider myself to be bearing my hegemony, or for that matter my living self. That's all. Thank you so much. If you like my channel, subscribe. If you don't, I don't know what are the words, incognito, hibernate, I don't know much about the technical terms. These are all things that I have to work on because of the recent amalgamation of the scientific development, or what we called the alienation for that matter, into Durkheim's consideration of division of labor, which was Marx against of. But then again, we need technological development to consider, and somewhere development is something which is pinnacle of success. So we always should go for growth. Again, a common question: what is the difference between growth and development? Very, very important for the student of economics and sociology, both roster stages of development. Please go through that, the stages of Rosto's development. Go through the differences between Lionel Robbins and Adam Smith consideration of wealth of nation, because of the fact that growth is kind of an inflation. When you reach the boom, means you're reaching the pinnacle. Again, the deflation occurs and you reach to the slack. So that means when you are reaching to the highest point, you have no one to blame upon. That's the reason we have gradation. When you reach the pinnacle, you have your back held in the this surface. Thereafter, you always need someone to blame upon. So do not go to the pinnacle of success. That's again the difference between growth and development. Another very common question for sociology and socio-economic or political matters for that matter, because Aristotle, being the father of political science, talked about power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Thank you so much.